All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of The Coach's Compass. As always, remember to hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we can continue to bring cool coaches on. So it's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live all the way over here from Europe. My boy, Coach Jay, can't be here today because he is traveling to Milan currently because, again, he's playing in the ELF. He's on his last year playing and trying to figure out what to do after retirement. I'm fully retired, so I'm good. I got plenty of free time. But we got another special guest with us today. It's my boy D out of the USA, but currently in Scandinavia right now. So he is a former D1 DB at the University of Hawaii, former professional player here in Europe, international DB coach, creator of First Down DBs, the #1 resource for DBs. Also has his own YouTube podcast with Mark Parson, a former NFL vet. Has multiple years of coaching all over the world, not just in the USA, not just in Europe, but I'm talking across the world. He is currently back here in Scandinavia doing his thing. So D, welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
Man, thanks, Coach Coop. I appreciate you. Love what you're doing, man. We only met one time, but I learned a lot from you just in that couple moments that we had. So thanks for having me on.
Man, obviously, since the time that we met, I've been following everything you've been doing and seeing what you're doing across the world. But you're coaching DBs at a super high level, bro. Like, you've got probably one of the top platforms for DBs to learn and come and fine tune their game. What are you doing that is so much better and reaching success for yourself than other DB coaches out there?
I think the difference that I've seen, I waited before I even got into it. So one thing about me, and I think that I learned, is you got to study and you got to survey the land. So I was watching what other people were doing, and then, of course, taking a little bit what they're doing mixed with my experience, and then what I think their content may or may not be lacking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I played Division I at a high level, was fortunate enough to be coached by some great coaches, first and foremost. Dave Aranda, he was the defensive coordinator my freshman year. He won the last national championship for LSU. Durante Jones was my defensive backs coach, and he's currently coaching defensive backs for the Minnesota Vikings. Right there, as far as the IQ of it and the technique of it, I was blessed to be surrounded by some great coaches. And then always just having a passion for technology, computers, editing. I never got to do it because I'm so focused on ball, but that was always my one thing. And I suggest all athletes find that thing while you're chasing, your dream. You never know when it might come in handy. You might be able to use it. So just combining, elite, top of the top knowledge with playing it. And then just a passion for editing and being able to communicate it effectively so I can teach an NFL guy what he did wrong all the way to, a Danish kid who's never done it. So I think the combination of that is why I've been able to have success, on the internet with what I'm putting out there.
So how did you find time to learn how to edit and whatnot? Because again, you said you were focused more on football, but then like now you're going into the other side of life, which we're all trying to figure out and navigate what we're trying to do when we retire from playing. But figuring out how to edit and also coach what you're editing and stuff. I mean, like you said, you had great coaches down there in Hawaii that are now in the NFL level. How did you do that?
Man, so I was always a kid that never was ashamed or shy of what I was interested in. So, I grew up in, the neighborhoods where we're all playing basketball or football on the same team. But then when we go our separate ways, how are you spending your free time? So I was a Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm hanging out with the nerds, and I'm hanging out with the computer geeks. And I really just thought it was cool, So, man, like the kid that, I knew kids who were unlocking iPhones, way back in 2007, and they were unlocking the little portable PS1s or whatever they were called, PSPs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was
PSP,
always,
yeah.
yeah. So I was always hanging around those kids, and I was like, just because you're not on the basketball team, or we don't really sit together at lunch. If I'm interested in it, I'm gonna do my best to surround myself with it. If I personally don't have the knowledge to further myself, then I'm gonna sit with, or I'm gonna surround myself with the people, the experts. And I think that carries over into coaching. um, I'm always searching for knowledge. I'm always watching YouTube, Twitter, trying to learn from this coach, that coach. And a lot of times it's not even trying to learn something new. It's kind of maybe reaffirming my own thinking. And I think that's what pushed me into this space. Like, hey, like, I actually know a lot, like, I'm not, you never really know until you put yourself out there and how you receive it. I was okay. I surveyed the land. Like, I know a lot. I'm confident stepping into this space.
So then, like, talking about stepping into the space, what has it been like taking your brand international, and what have been the struggles, and also how's it been to kind of get people to buy into what you're doing?
I think, well, where I got the confidence, one, is coming international. So I came to Denmark, and as a professional player, but then my head coach John Matthews, was like, "Hey, I already know you can play, but you need to coach. Like, that's all I care about. I know you're going to be able to have success at this level. You have to be able to coach." So putting together a playbook, it was super tough, man, because I'm like, damn, I didn't save none of my playbooks. I didn't screenshot anything. So I'm calling coaches and I'm trying to pull things off the internet just to put a playbook together, and then trying to teach that, and then trying to teach that to kids that don't even speak the language, and then trying to, coming over to Europe and finding out that not only am I playing, but I'm coaching, and I'm playing with people that I'm younger than, and, people that are 40 years old. I have to tell them what to do, and I have to be, they have to be assured that I know what I'm talking about. Going from learning the back end, I can teach you the techniques of in coverage for all the nickel, the safety, the corner. But now I got to learn linebacker. I'm like, I don't know what the difference between a 30 and a 50 is. I don't know stunts. Like, I was like, so, really having to go back and really approach the game from, from the beginning, and I thought you really think you know everything until you have to know everything. Like, yeah. But I guess as far as the internet goes, the internet's crazy, man, because people can talk to you however they want to talk to you, and you can't get a hold of them. You know what I'm saying? So I was, putting yourself out there. I'm like, okay, you're getting likes, and you're getting 50 likes, 200 likes, but with the likes comes the negative. So
Mhm.
my biggest thing is let's say I got a post that has 1,000 likes. I would let the 5 negative comments kind of overrule all of the positive flow that's coming in. And I'm very combative when it comes to that, because that's been my whole life. Being a small athlete or a shorter DB, it's like you always got to meet fire with more fire. And so trying to remove that attitude. All right, dude, you're not a player. You can't physically impose your will against these people. You could only take it for what it is, and then just try to work harder to prevent that person, or prevent people from being able to say whatever they say about your content. But I think once I started getting NFL players and NFL coaches and college coaches saying, "Hey, you know what you're talking about," boom, that was all I needed to just keep moving forward.
Right. Yeah. That's that. Internet's a tricky place, man. It gets. As a former athlete, you always know that, like, you got that fire inside you. That one negative comment. I mean, all of us used it. The negative stuff that's always said about us. Like, we use it to fuel our fire for, like, the game coming up and whatnot. But, like, now you got to figure out how to fuel those negative comments to keep you, I guess, push you forward. But I also just, like, leave them in the past. Like, it's just people on the internet. Like, they really don't know
Yeah,
what they're talking about half the time. But you
yeah,
also talked about, being with Coach Matthews, one of the guys that we've had on already, to talk about all his journey throughout the football career, and being a coach now. What was it like learning from a guy like himself? And also, you had another big time guy in Denmark. You had Coach Desi. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Desi
yeah.
is a well known guy there in Denmark too. What was it like having those two guys on your side?
Man, it was everything. I would not be where I am period without those two, without their support. John being here for 10 years, and this goes back to like everybody, whether you think you know it all or you're brand new, you got to soak up as much knowledge as possible. If you're trying to do something and you know someone or you meet someone that's already doing it, you need to be around them as much as possible. So John being in Denmark for 10 years, I'm trying to learn everything there is to learn about being an international. I'm asking him questions. I'm taking volunteer positions at his job. So I'm working in his school, and I'm just, immersing myself in the culture to try to fast forward, where I want to be. Anything I needed, all the things that, all the negatives and all the things he went through, I'm asking questions, he's telling me so I can avoid a lot of those. And then under his mentorship, I meet Desi, and Desi's another guy who's, a decade plus deep in Europe, and he's coaching in the schools. The only two schools in the country in Denmark that are teaching American football. I'm in the middle of both of them, and I'm helping them both. And like I said, without them, I wouldn't have the stability in terms of like residency. You know what I'm talking about? Like you can't you got, unless you got a job out here, you got 90 days in, 90 days out. So knowing them, I was able to secure residency, working with John, officially, and then, leaving John, or not leaving John, but leaving the situation John put me in to then be able to go work at a school with Desi. And then fast forward 3 years, now I'm navigating my own residency, and I'm figuring it out on my own. So like I said, those guys are 10 plus years. So that's over 20 years of experience. And I was able to fast forward my situation significantly by learning from both of those guys.
Yeah, I can say it myself too, bro. Like Desi and John are probably two guys that I always go to when it comes to the whole residency process and what it's like to stay here in Scandinavia and just navigating through football and whatnot here in Scandinavia, because it's a different game, right? It's handled differently. Like the federations are different. Like how to coach athletes and communicate with them is completely different. Like the whole thing with Yendalaw, like is something that we don't hear of in the States, where you got to feel like you're equal to everybody and not brag about it or anything. Like that doesn't correlate to fucking football. It doesn't have like
It doesn't. Yeah, you're right.
If I'm better than you and I line up across from you, I'm gonna let you know that I'm better than you. So
Yeah.
having those two guys on our side, so shout out to those two, man. Like, gotta give them their flowers for being there, especially for us young African Americans coming over here to Europe, trying to figure out a way to stay, because we know that what it's like to be over here is I would say it's a better lifestyle than what we came from in the States,
Yeah.
But also on top of that, like working with the athletes, what are some of the things that you see with these youth DBs, especially here in Europe, that you don't really get a chance to see in the States and whatnot?
I would say just in terms of when I'm here, when I'm in Europe, it's more multi positional. So I work with all positions, and they all have the same thing where, man, it's like you guys got the bodies, you got the frames, but there's no core. Like you got all the, man, it's like I'm working in the schools. I'm like, why is every person in this school, girl and female, or girl and male, like male and female, like 6 foot? Like it's crazy. I'm like, what? So, I'm grabbing these guys like, hey, like, you need to play DB. You need to play here. Like, you can do it. You can do it. But the one thing I say is they just don't have there's no foundation. And you can't blame them, because once you meet their coaches and you're like, oh, okay, like, of course. And I would say because they understand that good coaching, it doesn't have to be American, but good coaching is hard to come by. Once you got them, you got them. In the US, it's like I was coaching at a high school, and I had to basically fight with these guys to listen to what hey, like, I actually played where you're trying to go. Therefore, it would benefit you to listen to me, like, and I just got, and like, and I just got burnt out. I'm like, I'm done arguing with 15 and 16-year-olds that think they know more than me, and I'm done arguing with parents who think their kid is what they're not. Not saying that he can't be, but hey, man, I sacrificed and I did everything I need to do. Blood, sweat, and tears into the game. If you're not, I'm not pulling teeth. I'm not pulling teeth. So that's in terms of the athletic side. You'll get kids that'll hop on a 3-hour train to come train with you for 2 hours, and I've had that happen. And I'm so thankful for this experience because I gave up on football. I was like, hey, it's done. The dream's over. I don't want to coach. I hate kids. Let's go get a job. This in Europe, it rejuvenated my passion for the game because you want to be around people who love it just as much as you did. And then you got a completely blank canvas. They'll lift how you tell them to lift. They'll eat how you tell them to eat. They'll do everything you tell them to do because they have that utmost trust into you. And then that inspires me to actually make sure that I'm giving them everything I can, and I'm constantly evolving as a coach because you've seen it. You know, you got to make money to survive. You got their own hustle, but then you get over here, and then I'm just disappointed that a lot of people are using their American status to kind of finesse these kids, and finesse the situation. But again, I don't really care too much in terms of that because I understand everybody has to eat, But just the way I roll and the way I like to do things. It's got to come from a good place, and the money will come for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of integrity with it. You know what I mean? Like it will happen over time, and if you're doing a good thing, like of course you got to start off. Everyone starts off somewhere, right? Whether you're starting your sessions for free and then eventually you get to charging, like, or if you start off charging right away, and everyone starts somewhere. I'm not going to discredit anybody for hustling the kids or whatever it may be, but I know what the work you're doing is fantastic work because I've been able to follow it throughout the whole journey, especially from the first time we met all the way up till now. But also, you went from Denmark to Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You spent a little time in Japan, and we just saw Japan's U20 team beat United States U20 team. Now, everybody will say that our U20 players, like, it's not the top of the top, which is okay, that's true. But can't discredit Japan for being disciplined and whatnot. What was it like coaching out there?
Man, going from Europe to Japan, it's a complete 180. Like, Europe's going this way with football. Japan is that they are super disciplined, and it was like their energy and the way they play football kicked my energy up another notch. Because in Europe, you got to understand it's just a sport. You might get out of 40 people in the club, you might have two that really are going to take it serious and outside. Like I remember, we're down at halftime and I got some of my teammates cracking open a beer, and I'm like,
or ripping the cig, bro.
yeah, ripping this, and I'm like, and it bothered me for a little bit, but then I'm like, hey, look at where you're at. Look, when this game is over, or before this game, you're going and you're living your solo single life, and they got kids, and like this is and I had to, okay, this is what it is. It took me a while. This is what it is. In Japan, it don't matter if you just worked a 20-hour shift. You're going to be at practice. You're going to go hard. You're going to be in that weight room. You're going to prepare. And then I was like, man, okay, yeah, so we're back to real ball. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. Like,
Right.
You get 100% buy-in in Japan. And obviously, how, like, in America, like, the kid who has the most heart doesn't have the measurables. The kid that wants it the most is probably the shortest kid or the slowest kid. And the kid that has all the scholarship offers has the worst grades and the worst work ethic. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So in Japan, obviously, just based on genetics, they don't have the body structures to be able to, if you put the best U20 players in America, right? You're talking about, freshmen that are starting at Bama, 17 years old. Those guys versus that U20 team is a different thing. But I think it was a great lesson for everyone, and I was super happy for Japan because, hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. And I know one thing about Japan is they're going to have scheme, effort, and discipline, and that'll get you far. And in football. So one thing I looked for the U20 team, I could just tell. I'm like, they probably didn't practice. The scheme was the effort was the discipline was and I was like, and it was supposed to be that way. That's the way the game is supposed to go. When one side is doing everything they can to be ready, And I don't know if the American team did or didn't, but just the way it looked, you and I have been around ball, you can tell preparation versus non-preparation. So, congrats to them for sure.
Yeah, nah, I mean, I don't know much about our U20 team. I didn't even know. Like I know when I was growing up, I didn't hear much about joining a national team or anything like that. But
Yeah,
for us being abroad, like we hear it all the time now. Like every country is super excited. Like when it's U17, U19, U20, up to the senior team, playing for your national team is like a sense of pride. So I think there's a little more practice that goes into it for the countries outside the states because, I mean, everyone in the states is trying to play in the NFL or play D1 in college, and I mean, you got international kids that are trying to do the same thing, but they know that if you play for this national team game, right, it's an extra chance of exposure, right, and a chance to
exactly.
make it to the top level and go to the states. So I think
Hmm.
that comes into it a little bit, but again, I saw the scheme of what Japan was doing. It looked like they knew, which is one thing that is hard across like the board outside of the states and outside of Canada, and I would also say like Mexico too, is
Hmm.
finding scheme and people that actually know how to scheme up a game.
Yeah, yes, bro. It's crazy. And that's really it. It's you know what I'm saying? Like the scheme is everything. So anyone who takes the time to learn the sport and to really approach it the way we've always been around it, you deserve happy when you succeed. And me being international, uh, I understand you like you too. You understand how hard it is to find a team that is not just running zone left, zone right, cover one, cover three, zone left.
Tackle, that is our
Yeah,
scheme.
that's the scheme. Man. That's the scheme. And being around the Japanese, I will say um, they're absolute sponges. They're absolute sponges. They will pay money to go to Ohio State or go to USC and stay in a hotel for a week and just be around it and learn from the top of the top, and I appreciate that because you don't know how many times, and I'm sure you've had to do it where you've had to try to explain yourself to someone who's inferior to you in terms of the football knowledge, and it's like, dude, like, why would you bring me over here if you're not going to listen to me? But that's another
That's the
story.
whole thing, you know what I mean? Who are some coaches, players in the game that you are kind of like studying and learning from? Because I know you said earlier that you're on YouTube trying to reaffirm, fine tune what you're doing yourself, but like, who are some of the guys that you're looking up to?
I would say right now it changes. It changes all the time. So, like I said, Dave Aranda and Durante Jones both were defensive coordinators at LSU, and they're both in the top 1% as far as respected coaches in all of football in the world. So I'm very proud of them for what they're doing. But who I'm currently studying, I've been studying the hell out of Kirby Smart and Cody Alexander. So Cody Alexander, I think he's high school, but he's very, very smart, and he also teaches defensive backs. He teaches it in a different way than I do. I would say our difference is he teaches it from, uh, and he might have played, but he's teaching it from a very strategic or schematic way. He knows coverages like the back of his hand, and that's my weakness is being able to make adjustments and know coverages. I can teach cover four, but what happens when you need to get out of cover four? Where do you go, and why? Why? The why. Like, he's really good at the why behind schemes. So I really like him. And then Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart has put his mind on the internet, and I don't think people understand. Like, I was shocked when he went over his entire philosophy, his entire playbook, the way he coaches his players, and I was like, how does this only have 2,000 views? It's been on the internet for 3 years. It has 2,000 views. Like, you got to be kidding me. So that tells me a lot of people don't do their homework. And I'm like, okay, I have his playbook. I have how he teaches it, the why behind it. If you're getting, if they're attacking you this way, then you need to be in this front. If they're attacking you this way, then you need to be in this coverage. And I'm like, gosh, those are the two guys that I'm just soaking in. And then once I feel like I have it, once I get about 80% of it, to where I can rehearse it. I mean, teach it to you, right? For instance, then I'll move on to the next guy. And again, I'm not really looking. I'm not sure what I'm looking to do with all this information as far as do I want to go pro, do I want to go to college, do I want to do? But it's fun to learn the game. It's really cool to learn the game from a chess standpoint, and it makes coaching that much more exciting, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people don't realize how technical the game is until you fully dive in. And you're talking about like if you're in one coverage, like if you got to you get in a situation and you need to switch over to another coverage, like, and you blatantly admit that like, hey, that's like a weak point. And a lot of coaches won't do that. You know what I mean? A lot of
Mm.
coaches will just say, "Oh, well, I know enough to like get us by, and like we're good." Like, won't say that like, "Hey, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to take a little more time to study it." Like, you're doing your homework on it, like
Mm.
to actually learn and make not yourself just better as a coach, but like all your athletes better too, because you want to give them the best opportunity to go out there and play their best. And that's kudos to you for doing all that stuff, man. Cause like it takes time on top of everything that you're already doing. Cause life gets hectic, right? Especially as coaches, right? There's times that like we feel like there's not 24 hours in a day and there's only like 6 and you're trying to cram everything in and you're like, shit, like I don't even have time to like know who I am. On top of that, bro, like with all that being said, what would you like if you're looking back at 16-year-old D? What would be your most valuable piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh man! First and foremost, run track. Everybody, run track, run track, run track, run track. Uh, I have seen many people get opportunities not because of what they put on film, but what they put on paper. Okay, so I wholeheartedly feel like if I would have ran in a 4.4, I would have gotten into a rookie mini camp. I would have made the team. Yada 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 yada. But so everybody run track. That if you run a 4.4, there will always be a door for you. Trust me. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, I would have not saying that I wouldn't have gone to the University of Hawaii, but I would have done more research on where I was going. I went to Hawaii because at the time they were recruiting me the hardest and they were D1 and they had just played Georgia on TV. That's literally why I went to Hawaii. Like, like so, I didn't study the major. I didn't study, um, the coaching tree because that matters, but just doing your research on where you're going because and I think about this all the time. Had I made a different decision, had I went to because I'm from Seattle, the Seattle area, Washington. Had I gone to Eastern Washington, I think I would have been further along in my coaching. I think I would have gone further. The reason why I say that is because Eastern Washington is FCS, and I played them off like I'm D1. And only reason I had that mindset is because everyone else around me had that mindset. Again, I wasn't a free thinker. It was like, oh, D1, D1, because everyone else is D1. So that same year, they wanted me to play as a freshman. That year, when I went to Hawaii, they won the national championship for that level. 3 years after that, I probably saw five DBs from that program go to the NFL. And now that I'm older, I realize, damn, like, you go to a bowl game, that guarantees at least three of your guys are going to get a chance. You win a national championship, you're guaranteed to get at least five guys who, like, if we're just talking about that and it's like, damn, like you really don't understand like how this all works. So I would have just told myself to do your research and the way I'm learning the ins and outs in the game now, like do it now. Learn what make coaches tick. Who do they know? How many players have gone to the NFL from the school you're going to? Yada yada yada. And with the transfer portal, we didn't have it, but let's just say I did have the transfer portal when I was 16. It doesn't matter where you go, just get to school.
Good.
Yeah, the FCS All American freshman All American went from FCS to SEC in 8 months. So yeah, that's what I would have stopped playing around with basketball. I think I held on to that dream a little too long, and I would have just went full fledged into not leaving basketball, but like thinking that like basketball was like, I was going to be Isaiah Thomas. I really thought that. So instead of running track and lifting weights, I'm in the gym because I don't want to mess up my jump shot, I would probably be 70% football, 30% basketball is just a hobby, because I believe you should be a dual sport or multi-sport athlete. But yeah, do your research, guys, on in everything you do, so that so you don't live with shoulda, woulda, couldas or regrets or any of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Like, man, I wish we had more time to chop it up about more things, but we're gonna get into our last segment, bro. We got our 90-second round. It's one word answers to end off the day. Are you ready for it, bro?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. First one: favorite post-workout snack.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Favorite NFL team.
Saints.
Best concert you ever been to.
The weekend.
Pizza or burger.
Burger.
Dream vacation spot.
Oh, I would say I don't even know the name of it. Let's go sun and water. Sun and water.
Top athlete you've ever trained.
That's a tough one. That's tough. I train high school athletes, so sorry, man. We got yeah.
Your favorite exercise.
Core. Anything core.
Which do you prefer, a good sprint session or a heavy lift session?
I mean, I'm super into sprinting at this point of my life. Before, 5 years ago, I would have said lifting.
Best coach in the industry.
Durante Jones.
What is your number one flaw as a coach?
Ooh, number one flaw as a coach, I would say, is being too much of a player coach.
Would you rather be in an octagon with a gorilla, tiger, or a bear?
Tiger. Yeah. I would go tiger because, like, a gorilla strong as hell. If a bear grabs you, it's over. I feel like, I can bob and weave and possibly just, I feel like a tiger's my best.
Appreciate you being here with us today, man. Thank you for taking the time out, man. And again, DBs, if you're out there, even a linebacker, anybody on the defense side of the ball, right? You got an opportunity to learn from Coach D. Go ahead and reach out to him because he's doing tremendous work and he's learning the game from top to bottom and teaching people how to put them in great positions to get out there and be the best you can be on the field when it's time for you to play those games. So, D, thank you for being here with us today, man.
I appreciate you, Coach, and just one correction, and it's not a huge one. So I'm no longer with First Down DBs. I've made a new one. I'm moving. It's called DB Network. DB underscore network. I definitely want to come on again because business-wise, young athletes and guys, there's a lot of things you need to learn, before you just sign your name on anything. Contract. There's a lot of things you need to learn. So that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. I appreciate you, Coach.
For sure. We out.